Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. Join as I am each and every week with my good buddy, Matt Haladic, at his new time. We love having this guy on Saturdays. He does a terrific job with us. We just love him as a human, love him as a great friend, and what a terrific journalist for Men's Journal. Check him out when you go to mensjournal.com with it. The voice of men, Men's Journal, is where you'll find Matt Haladic. Joins us each and every week to talk sports. Matt,
Yeah,
first of all, how are you? Did you enjoy week 2 of football?
I did. I'm doing well, first and foremost, and it was an enjoyable, kind of a fun, wild week around the NFL. Some things I expected, some things maybe I didn't. But, I think that I always say you need probably about a month or so to really settle into a season and kind of see how things are going to take shape. But I do think even through the first 2 weeks, you can kind of see who some of the elite teams are, who some of the real bottom teams are, and I think you'll get some more clarity throughout the end of the month and into October.
Matt, let's take a moment though and talk about the Raiders. If bad performance by Geno, you can't go around that. I mean, you can't sugarcoat it. It is what it is. It was a terrible performance. But you look at how great he was the week before, and I mean, I've said, and I maintain it, he's a top 10 to 15 quarterback. When I talk to people around the league who I trust, that's where they have him. That's what he's looked like. And when you have a top 10 to 15 guy, you're going to get a performance like that where he's almost pressing too hard. But still, I don't think there's any reason to panic. I'm all in on the Geno Smith train and where he is. I have no issues with him. I'd like your thoughts.
No, I think that you're going to get those type of games. It's rare to see somebody who's a top five quarterback ever play like that. But there are going to be guys who are, in that 10 to 12, 15 range who are going to have a bad game here or there throughout the course of the season. Now, listen, that was one of the worst games I've seen him play in a while, but I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be a long-term thing or something that's going to be a consistent thing where he's going to struggle to that extent. And I actually kind of think it's a little bit of an embodiment of where the Raiders are at as a team right now, because I think when you look around the league, usually, give or take maybe a couple teams in each category, but usually about a quarter of the league, 8 teams or so, has legit Super Bowl aspirations or, feels like they are primed for a deep playoff run. And then there's usually about 8 teams, another quarter of the league, that are just really at the bottom, like they're going to be picking in the top 8, and it's they're looking to next year already almost. And then there's 16 teams, half the league, that are in that in the middle somewhere, and I think that the Raiders are in that 16, and I think there's going to be weeks where maybe like a week 1 or other times during the year, you're going to see them look like they could be the 10th best team in the league. And I think there's going to be weeks where you see them look like they're the 23rd or 24th best team in the league. And I think that was kind of what happened on Monday night.
I could not have put it better than myself. And, they head out to the nation's capital this week, where that is a very injured Commanders team. I still think the Raiders will lose, but a win here would not shock me, especially without Jaden Daniels.
I had this as a loss coming in, and I'm going to stick with it as a loss, but I think that it's a winnable game now if Jaden Daniels does not play. Because, listen, Marcus Mariota is a quality backup quarterback. He's played a lot of football. Raiders fans know him well. But he's not Jaden Daniels, and Jaden Daniels is, dynamic. He makes that offense go. And if he can't play, you leave open the opportunity for the Raiders to get in there and steal a game, particularly if you get a good Geno Smith performance like you got in week 1. So I would still stick with it being a loss, with the travel, with the fact the Commanders are coming back home, coming off a loss themselves against Green Bay where they're not happy with how they perform, where they really look to be a cut below, an elite team there. So they're going to want to prove that they're going to be a contender again in the NFC. But I think without Jaden Daniels, it is a winnable game.
Let's turn our attention to Patrick Graham. Underrated, man. This guy's defense is just outstanding. I there's very little to not like about this guy and all. I mean, he held the Chargers to 20, and you know the rule in the NFL, 20 or less. It's what you want to do when you are a defense in the NFL, 20 or less. And this guy just did it. It amazes me the lack of respect he gets around the NFL. Starts the season off two back-to-back great performances, still not getting a lot of talk. Last year, when you look, everyone, oh, the Raiders defense wasn't that good. Okay, they had 9 starters out. It was phenomenal based upon what he was doing with that team. Uh, Help me here. I'm trying to wrap my arms around the great Patrick Graham here.
No, I think that listen, he's a guy who I was able to watch what he was able to do up close with the Giants out here in New York, and I think what he's done with the Raiders so far through multiple coaching staffs, um, in Vegas, he's proven he knows his stuff. He's going to be able to keep the team in the game, and I think that listen, he was able to in the second half. They did come out. They had a long drive to start the second half, resulting in a field goal, but they buckled down, held them to a field goal, and then in the fourth quarter, they were able to turn the Chargers over a couple of times, either on downs or a fumble recovery, and they were able to give the Raiders a chance to kind of get back in that game. Offensively, they weren't able to do it, but the defense was there against a good team, against a good quarterback. Well, it's a definite encouraging performance, and I think that it'll be interesting to see how they look in week 3, where you're either going to get a chance to play against one of the better quarterbacks in the league again in Jay Daniels, or if he's out against a Mariota who's experienced, but a chance where your defense can set the tone and maybe lead you to a victory.
I don't care about injury reports. Just if I'm the Raiders, I never mind. It doesn't matter. My whole focus is Jaden Daniels, man. All right. Let's turn our focus now to the NFL. Some surprises, some not surprises. Let's start with your G-men. A chance to put Kansas City at 0-3. I don't think they're going to, but that would be a knockout punch. Their season's over. Put a fork in it if they start 0-3.
If you were to say before the season that the Giants and Chiefs would go into that week 3 game with the same record, I don't think anybody would have picked the Chiefs to be 0-2. I think you would have thought that either the Giants stole one of those first 2 games against a division team, or the Giants were the shock of the league through 2 weeks and they were 2-0 like the Chiefs were. But the Chiefs being 0-2, and here's the thing, I do expect them to beat the Giants. I think that the defense, as well as Russell Wilson played in week 2, the Chiefs defense with Steve Spagnuolo, they're better than the Cowboys defense. I think they'll give them trouble. And I think that the Chiefs offense, even though it's struggling, is going to do enough against the Giants defense, which hasn't played well, to win the game. With that being said, there's legit concerns about the Chiefs moving forward, even assuming if they do win this game, because the schedule doesn't ease up. They go from playing this at New York. If they win, say, assume they win 1-2, they got to come home and play Baltimore. I mean, again, it's at Arrowhead, but still, you're playing a Ravens team that might be the best in the conference. Then you go to a feisty Jacksonville team. Then you play Detroit at home. Then you have a divisional game against the Raiders. You got the Commanders, who should have Jaden Daniels back at that point unless he gets hurt again. You're at Denver. You're at Buffalo. Like, this is a hard schedule, and some of these issues I think are for real, especially the offensive ones. Now, maybe if they get Xavier Worthy back, or Rasheed Rice off the suspension, that helps. But they need more dynamism, and they need more explosiveness on the perimeter, because they just don't have that. And Travis Kelce is not the receiving weapon that he was in his prime a few years ago. He's older, he's slower, he still can be an effective target, but he's not going to be, a big wide receiver at times like he was, in the prime of his career.
What did you think of them wearing the shirts, Free Rice?
I understand that you're going to go to bat for your guy, but I don't necessarily think that it was a good look at all. I mean, this is a guy who is suspended after a 30-day jail sentence because of a car crash where he was driving out of control. He hit a car which had two children in it. Thankfully, they weren't injured, but it was completely irresponsible. I mean, this isn't a guy who, failed a drug test for he smoked a joint or something like that, or smoked some weed, and you're like, oh, he's really not hurting anybody, he's not doing anything. This is a guy who put other lives and his own life in danger. I don't think it's a very good look for Kelsey and Thornton and Hollywood Brown to wear it. I'm a little especially surprised at Kelsey being the veteran on that team, a guy who's been in the league for so long, to still do that. But I didn't love it myself personally.
But you notice it wasn't all of them.
I believe it was just those three, the ones that I
Yeah.
saw at least,
Well,
were
that was the
Travis
thing that stood
Kelsey,
out to me. Aaron, that
um,
was the thing that stood out to me
yeah,
was it
Hollywood
wasn't
Brown
all of
and,
them.
and Tyquan Thornton.
Yeah, that was my point. It wasn't all of them.
Yeah,
And for a buttoned up Chiefs organization that does things usually right, I don't know this. This is purely Hondo, but I can't imagine the Hunt family was even remotely happy.
I wouldn't be surprised with that either. That would be a pretty good thing I'd be willing to bet. A pretty good bet I'd be willing to make.
Yeah. There's an old saying where I'm from in Michigan. I'd bet the farm on that one. And then living in Vegas, that's where I'd go. All right, I want to switch angles a little bit. It's the third day I've had to talk about this, but it's still relevant. And it's Tom Brady. He's up in the booth wearing a headset, not breaking any rules. Okay. The NFL allows this. So let's make that very clear. But you're dealing with a guy that comes from an organization whose ethics have been questioned, to say the least, who had Deflategate and everything else. Then you have Antonio Pierce, who comes out and says, he was a great help for us. I think it would be, quote, foolish, unquote, to think he wouldn't help. That didn't help the situation. I'm sorry. I think let me just be very blunt. I don't think teams are going to give him anything. So I think it's a nothing burger. But I totally understand the perspective of the angry,
right.
because the guy's had his issues. There's been integrity issues with where he's been in the past. And so there clearly are issues. The problem I have here is with the NFL. I have no issues with Tom Brady. And I want to make that clear. But I get why people are mad. It's sensical to me. Please tell me your thought.
I think optically it's not a good look for the league because, hey, let's be honest here. You know Raiders fans better than I do, but I know Raiders fans and they don't like the Patriots for obvious reasons.
They hate them. Let me just tell you something.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this to you. And I know I'm interrupting you, and I apologize, and I'm going to give you the entirety of the floor, but I'm going to put this in perspective. You always hear that there are rivalries, but they're not the same as college. Like Michigan State, Auburn, Alabama, Washington State, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. There are certain rivalries that are just bitter hatred. And I thought, because people in the NFL, it's not like college. Raider fan can't stand the Chiefs. But I'm telling you, the level of hatred for the Patriots is college level hatred. Now go ahead. I'm sorry.
And which leads into my point that I believe that, Raider fans have to acknowledge that dislike for the Patriots and Brady, with what the Patriots did and allegedly did and didn't do over the years. Optically, it's not a great look for the league. I believe that while I do respect the love that Raider fans have for kind of being the renegades and for pushing the envelope and all that stuff that Al Davis loved, I think that a lot of Raider fans would be unhappy if Brady was doing this for another team. 100%. Because, and listen, here's the thing. Like you said, I don't think a coach is standing there poring over his game plan with Tom Brady and giving him, anything that's really, stuff that he wouldn't, that's too inside info. But I just don't think that it's a great look for the league when this was a story and the league said he's within his rights, he's doing the right thing, but then he's on the headset and he's doing broadcasts every week. Um, I don't blame Tom Brady. I don't even necessarily blame the Raiders. I do blame the NFL. I think it's their fault that it looks the way it does.
No argument. No argument from me whatsoever. And here's listen. I had an NFL executive say to me, and now Tom Brady's part owner in a franchise where Al Davis used to have a sign hanging up. Rule number one, cheat. Rule number two, senior rule number one. And then, which I thought was funny. But here's what one executive said to me: forget the Raiders. This does nothing to bother the Raiders. But if I'm Fox, I'm pissed because he's not going to get the level of information as
That's
our
also true.
competitors.
That's fair. Because we do know that in these production meetings, what goes on, guys are given heads up on, you'll hear it on a Saturday in college football or a Sunday about, announcer says, oh, depending, this side of the field or this area of the field, I'd watch for a fake here. I would do, they should keep an eye on for that. And the next thing you know, it happens. That's because the coach told them in the meeting, hey, we're looking at this situation. We're going to do this. And he has, he told them in confidence and he knows that the guy won't spill it. He'll just use it, for context and to have a background for the game itself. So if your broadcaster prevented from getting the type of info that he could really use, and I still think Tom Brady has enough to do his job, but if he's not getting all the inside stuff, it does hurt the Fox broadcast a little bit.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting for me to watch. All right, let's go around the NFL a little bit. I'm going to talk about a couple teams with you, and I want you to tell me what you think. Who do you think's the best team in the NFL right now?
Right now, I think the best team in the NFL, I think the best roster is in Baltimore, but I think the best team at the moment are either the Green Bay Packers or the Buffalo Bills, largely because of Josh Allen. Not that the Bills don't have talent besides Josh Allen, but Josh Allen is been so tremendous with them and what he's able to do, especially against Baltimore almost every time they play them. I think the best team in the NFL right now, it's either the Packers or the Bills.
All right. Are the Indianapolis Colts for real or a fraud?
They are for real enough to win that AFC South. I think they are.
Okay, but the AFC South is a fraud.
That's
do you
fair.
think we're talking about
Do
NFL in general?
Do I think that they are a legitimate AFC contender? No. I think that they have talent and they probably underachieved the last few years. I think that I do want to see some more as the season unfolds, but I think that you could have a good marriage there with Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones. But I don't think they're on the level of the Baltimore Ravens, the Bills. I would have put them below the Bengals, but now Joe Burrow's out. So I'll hold off there. But I would put them below the Chargers at the moment. So I think they're a playoff team. I think they will win that division, but I don't think they're a legit AFC contender.
Lions going into Baltimore. I think the Lions are going to beat them. What do you think?
I am I'm taking Baltimore a close one, but I think the Lions showed last week, and again, I don't think the Bears are very good, but I think the Lions showed last week that they're not as bad as they looked in week one. That might have been more of how good the Packers look more than how bad the Lions are. I think the Lions lose this week to go to 1-2, but then I think they kind of pick things up against the Browns. I think they win at Cincinnati with no Burrow after that. I think when all is said and done, the Lions are going to be a playoff team again in the NFC.
All right, I leave you with this. Pete Carroll, phenomenal coach, great human being, terrific leader. If he gets this team to 9 wins, how epic of a coaching job will that have been?
I mean, that would be a tremendous coaching job. You're talking about a team that wasn't totally devoid of talent, but was
True.
finished last in this division last year. Um, they got rid of a coach after 1 year. They had to revamp a lot of that roster and change things over. And for him to be able to get them to make them just improve by a few wins and get up to 9 wins and be in playoff contention, so more than double their win total, I think would be tremendous. You wouldn't be able to say enough about it.
I agree. He is the great Matt Hladek from Men's Journal. Matt, tell him where to find you on X.
Sure, you can find me at Matt Hladek 919 at MATTHLADIK 919, and I'm always on there chatting about ball.
Thanks, brother.